Meet Claire, a 36-year-old graphic designer from Portland. On paper, she seemed to have everything figured out. She had a stable freelance career, a decent emergency fund, a modest retirement account, and no debt besides her mortgage. But despite doing all the so-called right things, something always felt a little off. Her money never quite gave her peace. Every financial decision came with second-guessing. Every market dip brought on anxiety, and every raise or new client brought a temporary high that quickly faded. It was like chasing clarity through a fog. That's when a friend handed her a book that would quietly change her life, The Psychology of Money by Housel. At first glance, Claire assumed it would be another dry personal finance manual, maybe with a few investing tips or budget hacks. But it was different. It wasn't about math or numbers. It was about behavior. And that's what truly cracked something open inside her. One of the first lines that struck Claire hard was this: doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. That one sentence felt like a mirror. Claire had always believed financial success belonged to the most disciplined, the most knowledgeable, the spreadsheet experts, and Wall Street types. But this book flipped that belief. She began to realize that her challenges weren't due to lack of information. They were emotional. She'd read about index funds, budgeting, and compounding interest before, but she still struggled to act on what she knew. The turning point came when she read about how money decisions are never made in a vacuum. We all carry personal baggage into those decisions. Our upbringing, our fears, even our traumas. Claire grew up in a household where money was always tight. Her parents were constantly stressed about bills. Vacations were rare. Unexpected expenses were disasters. That childhood scarcity mindset followed her into adulthood. Even when she earned a solid income, she felt scared to spend. She hoarded money not out of strategy, but fear. And when she did spend, she often felt guilty afterward. This wasn't something a budgeting app could fix. This was deeper. It was psychology. Subscribe to Finance Family if you want more stories that help you rewire your relationship with money, not just your financial plan. As she read on, another concept that deeply resonated was the idea of enough. Housel shared examples of people who had millions and still ruined their lives chasing more. For Claire, that was a wake-up call. She realized she never really stopped to define what enough meant to her. She was always pushing, always saving more, always trying to get ahead, but never pausing to ask why. So she sat down and wrote it out. Her version of enough wasn't yachts or designer handbags. It was simple: a cozy home, time to pursue creative projects without financial stress, a few vacations a year, and enough savings to sleep peacefully. Realizing that helped her let go of the endless chase. She began to understand that freedom wasn't about having everything. It was about needing less. Another powerful moment came when Claire absorbed the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Rich is loud. It's what you see. The car, the house, the lifestyle. Wealth is invisible. It's what you don't spend. It's your freedom, your time, your options. Claire had spent years comparing herself to friends who traveled constantly and wore luxury brands, wondering if she was behind. But Housel's words hit her. Many of those same people might be swimming in debt. Wealth is quiet. So, she stopped comparing. She unfollowed a few social media accounts that fueled her insecurity. She stopped obsessing over how much others were making and started focusing on how much peace she could build. She began simplifying her finances: fewer accounts, fewer subscriptions, fewer distractions. She increased her investment contributions, not because she expected to beat the market, but because she wanted to give her future self options. She automated her finances so she wouldn't have to think about them constantly. And for the first time, she felt a sense of control, not over the market, but over herself. She also started viewing risk and luck differently. One chapter explained how people who succeed often downplay luck, while those who fail sometimes ignore how risk played a part. Claire began recognizing that her financial wins weren't just the result of hard work. She was lucky to have access to education, to live in a stable country, to find clients who paid her well. This didn't mean she didn't earn her success. It just gave her humility. And with that came gratitude. But perhaps the biggest change happened inside her mindset. Claire no longer chased perfection. She didn't try to time the market or hunt for the hottest investment. She focused on consistency. She stopped reacting to fear. She started thinking long-term, not just in terms of years, but decades. Every dollar she saved, every investment she made, wasn't about getting rich fast. It was about building a life she wouldn't need a vacation from. There were still moments of doubt. Old habits didn't vanish overnight. But now, she had a framework, a way of thinking that helped her stay grounded. And it all started with one unexpected truth. Money is emotional. Understanding that changed everything. Claire's story didn't stop with revelations. As weeks turned into months, she found herself re-examining every belief she once held about money, guided by the ideas she had discovered in the psychology of money. One concept that stayed with her was the importance of time, not just in terms of compounding interest, but in how time shapes our financial behavior. Morgan Housel's words rang in her head. Time is the most powerful force in investing. Claire realized she used to treat time like an enemy, always behind, always rushing to catch up. But the real magic happened when she slowed down. She stopped trying to leap ahead and instead leaned into patience. Rather than chasing big wins, she focused on small, consistent actions, investing monthly, reviewing her spending with intention, and celebrating the long game. She no longer saw time as something slipping away, but as an ally quietly working on her behalf. Her money didn't need to explode overnight. It needed to quietly grow while she lived her life. And that, perhaps, was the most liberating part. Claire began prioritizing joy, something she'd put off in the name of financial responsibility. For years, she avoided spending on things that brought her genuine happiness because she feared regret. Now, she allowed herself small luxuries, not because she was throwing away her future, but because she had finally defined her future. It had room for living well, not just surviving. Claire also began to understand just how different everyone's financial journey really was. One powerful message from Housel's book was this: your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. Claire realized she had fallen into the trap of universalizing her experience. She used to assume everyone should follow the same financial advice, that there was one best way to do things. But now, she saw that money is deeply personal. What works for one person may not work for another. She stopped giving unsolicited advice to friends. She stopped judging people's choices. She started listening more and appreciating the diverse ways people relate to money. As her perspective shifted, her relationships improved too. She and her partner had more open conversations about their financial fears, goals, and priorities. They created a vision together, not just about saving and investing, but about building a life aligned with their values. Instead of arguing about expenses, they started planning experiences. Instead of silently resenting each other's habits, they explored the emotions driving them. And this clarity led Claire to one of the most surprising takeaways of all. Money wasn't the end goal. It was simply a tool. A powerful one, sure, but only as meaningful as the purpose behind it. For so long, she chased numbers, a higher income, a bigger account balance, a faster path to retirement. But now, she was chasing something richer: peace, flexibility, time with loved ones, work that mattered. Morgan Housel wrote that wealth is what you don't see. And Claire now understood that more deeply than ever. Her sense of wealth came not from flashy purchases or social comparisons, but from the confidence that her decisions aligned with her future. That kind of quiet wealth, the kind that lets you sleep at night, became her new definition of success. She also began reflecting on the importance of humility. In the book, Housel stressed that no one can predict the future, not even the experts. Markets will rise and fall, economies will shift, and personal circumstances will change. Claire used to think she could outsmart these changes if she just read enough or planned well enough. But now, she saw the value in preparing for the unknown, not trying to avoid it. She built in buffers. She gave herself flexibility, and she learned to adapt rather than resist. By the time she revisited the final chapters of the book, Claire felt like a different person. Not because she had made radical financial moves, but because her mindset had matured. She was no longer anxious about being behind. She no longer sought financial perfection. She had found contentment, not complacency, but calm confidence. A belief that she was on the right path, even if that path looked different from others. She kept the book on her nightstand, not as a manual to follow line by line, but as a reminder of what truly matters when it comes to money. patience, humility, gratitude, and self-awareness. Those weren't traits you could track in an app or measure in a portfolio, but they shaped every financial decision from here on out. And so, Claire's journey continues, not towards some fixed financial destination, but toward a more meaningful relationship with money. One that supports her life, not controls it. If Claire's story resonated with you, let us know in the comments. What part of your money mindset needs a reset? Drop your thoughts below, give this a like if it made you reflect, and don't forget to share it with someone who needs a new perspective.